Well, it was bound to happen eventually. Over the past few weeks, I've been anticipating X-Men 97, and the last 3 episodes, bar a few oddities, have been pretty solid. Hell, I even left out a few minor nitpicks in my last 2 recaps, just because the show is so good, I can easily look past them. It just felt nice to be excited for something Marvel again. And I was extra stoked that it was the X-Men. You see what I did there? But after episode 4, I'm starting to get a little worried. Not only is it 2 mini episodes with wildly unrelated tones, but the second part is the first of a 2-parter that we're not going to get the conclusion to for another 2 weeks. And said conclusion is a full-length episode. Weird. And even after all this confusion, this is the shortest episode so far, clocking in at only about 26 minutes, minus credits. Naturally, I'm going to start with the first half of the episode, which is entitled Motendo. And I feel like this was a letdown in so many ways. But let me get this out of the way right off the bat. It's not because it's a Jubilee-centric episode. I'm totally fine with it being Jubilee-centric. As long as it's not Jubilee's fairy tale theater, I'm fine with that.
Your light brightens my world, mistress. Please, don't use it to make an evil darkness.
Which, to be fair, this episode is not that. It's got that Tron premise, with Jubilee and Roberto getting sucked into a video game, which could be a fun idea if it wasn't for the choice of villain, Mojo. Now, I don't know much about Mojo in the comics. I never really read comics with Mojo in it. But in the animated series, he's this annoying TV producer villain. He was the most annoying villain in the TV show when I was doing my rewatch. And even when I was a kid, I didn't like Mojo.
Ooh, flattery, young man. We'll get you absolutely nowhere.
Like I said before, Mojo is this slimy, intergalactic TV producer villain who's obsessed with the X-Men and getting ratings. And here, he's doing like that Jumanji sequel thing, or like I said before, Tron nonsense, in Mojo world. But instead of reality TV or sitcoms, it's a video game. And not only was I not stoked that it was Mojo again, but there's a video game villain who would have made a lot more sense here. And they didn't use him in the original show, Arcade. Hell, there's even an early 90s video game with the X-Men and Spider-Man fighting him. Do any of you remember that strangely aggressive ad for that Spider-Man X-Men game from the 90s, Arcade's Revenge? It played before most of the X-Men videotapes, and it's 15 seconds of pure chaos.
Tired of the same old fun and games?
We're bombarded with an awkward roar that's basically a Tim Allen sound from hell as the narrator describes the game.
Welcome, Spider-Man, X-Men, to the video game ride of your lives.
Wolverine, Spider-Man, Gambit, Cyclops.
Now on Genesis.
I'm trying to imagine what this voice even is and what the marketing team even intended from it. Yeah, a nondescript robot voice listing off Marvel characters I recognize. I need it. Maybe it's a Sentinel? I don't know.
Now on Genesis, the ultimate video game team. Are we having fun yet?
If I didn't tell you what the name of the game was at the start of this, would you even know? Yup, behind the belligerent tone, aggressive sounds, and flashy 90s effects, not once do they even tell you what the name of the game is. And speaking of 90s video games, what I thought could have been fun was that Mojo puts Jubilee and Roberto into a variation of the X-Men beat-em-up game. But if you're gonna do that, and you're gonna have them fight that game's variation of Magneto, why would you not have Magneto say, "I am Magneto, master of magnet"? Or, "Come here, X-Chicken." Or my personal favorite, I was gonna say maybe it's a licensing thing with Konami, but they're clearly making direct references to it, so why not have fun with it? Also, Motendo, like Nintendo. I feel like since this is a reference to a Konami game, wouldn't it be more fitting to call it Monami? Hell, they're not even playing on a Nintendo. That looks like a Genesis. Also, said beat-em-up game is actually a loose adaptation of the Pride of the X-Men pilot, which is unrelated to the 90s show, but that's why on the arcade cabinet, you'll see characters like Colossus and Nightcrawler, and why Magneto is the final boss on Asteroid M. They do try to tie it in with the original show's arc with Magneto and Asteroid M, which is fine, but That's why it's framed like that in this episode. Also throughout this episode, there's a mysterious figure that's helping out Jubilee and Roberto in the video game, which at first I thought was long shot, but I thought it was pretty cool that they pulled a Scooby-Doo in the cyber chase and have it be a digital, older version of Jubilee, who's actually voiced by Jubilee's original voice actress, Allison Court.
So Magneto was right. A bit. But he's totally wrong about one thing. Video games rule.
It's a cute little passing of the baton, and I liked that. I'm not sure if Mojo is just making up shows or he's giving us Easter eggs as clues to the future of the show, but please don't make Scott and Jean divorce. Unless you can make the best possible story, I really don't want that for them. It's okay to mine drama from other aspects of characters, not just relationship turmoil. Though, to be fair, with everything they went through in the last 3 episodes, with the baby and the clone and the uncertainty, maybe it makes a little sense. Just don't make Wolverine swoop in. I'd rather he date Morph than just pine over Jean again. And speaking of relationships, I don't know how I feel about the Jubilee-Roberto pairing. Yes, I know they've been leaning that way over the last couple of episodes, but Roberto sets off my gaydar hard. Hey, I'm bi, I could say that. Maybe he's bi. Who's to say? I mean, this is the X-Men, the gayest, biased soap opera in comics that isn't a romance comic or... hell, Archie. Before I forget, Jubilee makes a Hot Topic reference.
Was that you, Hot Topic stalker?
Which led me to search if Hot Topic was even around in the 90s, and yeah, it was. It was actually established in 1989 in Montclair, California. The more you know. Overall, this episode just wasn't for me. It's definitely my least favorite out of the 4, especially with how mature and gripping the previous 3 episodes have been. But that's not to say that... Wait. There's a whole nother story left. Yeah, Life Death Part 1 starts here. And like I said, it's tonally awkward. And it's even more awkward that it's the second half of an episode, but it's also Part 1 to a story? I know I say this a lot, but does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So this half of the episode focuses on Storm and her new relationship with Forge, a mutant whose ability is that he can create any sort of technology, who claims to be an old acquaintance to Professor X, and also says he can help Storm regain her powers. And this part of the episode, though short and a bit rushed, was a bit more my speed. I usually prefer more character-driven stories, especially with the X-Men. In the original series, you mostly see Forge as a future acquaintance of Bishop, as he's the man who's constantly sending him back in time, and he's alluded to in the previous episode of X-Men 97.
I do know a guy there. Smart. Can build anything.
Though we do see a younger Forge as a member of the governmental mutant team, the X-Force, which also includes Havoc, who in the original show is never revealed to be Cyclops' brother. So I'm kind of hoping we see that in this continuation. Anyway, we see Storm and Forge's relationship blossom, and it's a classic comic pairing, though here, like I said, it's a bit rushed. We only see them on screen together for maybe 7 minutes total, and he's already claiming that he loves her.
I love you.
Then, things go sideways, as it's revealed that the weapons used by the Friends of Humanity and the Executioner were designed by Forge. At least, their early designs were. See, like I said maybe 3 sentences ago, Forge's X-Force was run by the government, which is why this isn't too far-fetched of a concept. Plus, it explains why Forge is riddled with guilt and trying to help Storm, and why he's no longer affiliated with the government. Storm is justifiably angry by this, though the stress, coupled with Forge's machinery, may be re-unlocking Aurora's abilities. I didn't mention this in my episode 2 recap, but I think Jennifer Hale, who's Jean's voice actress, has a hard time saying the name Aurora.
Muff. Aurora.
To be fair, Aurora is a hard name. And the only reason I think I knew it is because I grew up with this shit. And Storm was definitely in my top 3. She's in my top 5 superheroes, like, period. Wrapping up the recap, the episode ends with who I thought was Storm's old nemesis, the Shadow King. But it's actually a character called the Adversary, and the Adversary is seen attacking Storm and Forge. What's gonna happen after all this? We'll find out in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
No, we're not getting a break next week. We're getting an entirely unrelated episode. And I'm like, Why'd y'all choose to structure it like this? I guess what I'm asking is this episode bad? And my answer? No. The video game parody was definitely not my thing, though, admittedly, it's mostly because I don't like Mojo, and the episode structure is nothing short of bizarre. And I feel like the Konami beat-em-up references, while fun, have several missed opportunities. Not to mention the strangely paced Forge professing his love to Storm. Yeah, I guess there was a lot that I didn't like this week, but the animation is still solid, and I am interested in more of Storm and Forge's story, especially since there's a new villain, which is cool. What did you guys think of the episode? Leave a comment below, and if you liked it, share your perspective. Maybe there's something you're seeing that I'm not. But until next time, I'll leave you with an amusing fun fact. In the original show, Forge is voiced by the late Mark Strange. Here, he's voiced by Gil Birmingham. Who's that, you ask? Why, it's Billy Black, Jacob's father from the Twilight movies. I don't know what else to add to that, so later. Special thanks to Mrs. Froggy, Big Drippy, Rukix, Robith, Straight Queer, Catherine Escobar, and Charizard for supporting me on Patreon. And thank you for making it to the end of the video.